Versus, let's think about the test drive. I'm going to hit the plus button. Now, the test drive, the easiest way to get in there oftentimes is just to say test drive. And then you're usually that's usually the easiest way to find it. Now, you could find it on the Intuit website, but their pages always change. So right now they're really kind of emphasizing the 30-day free trial, and they're kind of burying the test drive a little bit. So sometimes it's easier to just find it with a browser search. So we have this one, for example, right here. And so here's going to be the test drive. Now this one is the UK version. I'd like the United States version because I happen to be in the United States. The system will be the same. It's just kind of like the currency that will differ. And sometimes when there's laws that cause problems, such as tax law, that is an issue. This one up here looks like it might be the one. Notice that it has intuit.com in the URL. That gives me a little bit of assurance that at least it's not spam, hopefully, because Intuit is the owner of QuickBooks. So when you see intuit.com, that should give us at least hopefully a little bit of assurance that this is the proper place. I'm going to go into here, and then it might ask us if we're a robot. If it asks you if you're a robot, we're going to say, no, we're not a robot. And then we're going to get into the file. Now, it's been for a long time called Craig's Design and Landscaping Services. One of the problems with this system is that we can't really change the type of industry, right? It would be great if they had a test drive for like a service business versus a retail business versus a construction business and so on and so forth. I wish they would do that. You would think they would be able to, but they don't. We only get this one, which is a landscaper kind of system, which has, you would think, kind of like a job cost system set up with it. But it's cool because it's got all the data in it already. So in other words, what we can do from here is go directly to our reports. We'll talk about how to do this more later. Practice our navigation. I can right-click on the two major reports and open them in another tab. We're going to talk about the use of multiple tabs in future presentations because that's another benefit. Right-click and open the income statement. So these are the two major reports, profit and loss, which is the income statement, and the balance sheet. Now, if I go into the balance sheet now, this is the end result. This is like the engine that is currently constructed and working, and I can drill down on it by clicking on any item within it down to the source documents. The source documents are these forms. So if I click on, say, like the expense form, it takes me to the data input form that was used to create the source document. So there we have it here. So that is great, right? So we can basically see how the financial statements are constructed by, in essence, starting at the financial statements themselves, drilling down to what we might call the general ledger or transaction reports, drilling down from there to the source documents, getting ideas on what the source documents are reporting, and then we can, when we do the second half of the course, we will go from the source documents to the creation of the financial statements. We deconstruct, and then we learn, and then we reconstruct. That's going to be the process. So that's going to be so this is where we will be for mainly the first part of the course, practicing our navigation around the software in this page, and then practicing our data input forms, always keeping in mind what the impact of those data input forms on the end result. Now, this might sound overwhelming to a lot of people that are saying, hey, look, I just want to turn on bank feeds and just let the bank feeds do everything. It should be automated. We're in the era of AI. And if you have a really simple type of industry, you might be able to turn on bank feeds and do a lot of the work through simply the bank feeds. But even then, you still it would be best to know what the forms are doing, because even the use of the bank feeds are going to be increases and decreases to the bank accounts. So increases and decreases to the bank accounts are usually going to be deposit forms and expense or check type forms. So we're still going to end up using forms. You're still going to have this same issue of drilling down on the data to the actual forms, and you need to know at least what those forms are doing. If you're in more complex industries, any industry that has an accrual component to it, then like an accounts receivable account or an accounts payable account or inventory, these are going to mess up the idea of a very simple system that is automated with the simple use of the bank feeds. And as we go through our data input, we'll try to point out those items. We'll try to say, hey, look, this is a kind of system where you might be able to just turn on the bank feeds and make it as automated as possible. And this thing, payroll, for example, or inventory, or tracking the accounts receivable, these are things that are going to mess you up and force you to make a more complex accounting system, not based on you choosing whether to use an accrual or cash-based system, but being forced to use an accrual type of system in some cases, because that's the industry you're in. If you have to track accounts receivable, you have to do that. If you have to deal with inventory, you have to do that. So the best practices to deal with those problems will force you to do an accrual component, and that accrual component will make your accounting system more complex. So we'll try to point that out as we go. Now, if you want to look up this free student file, again, I would simply browse for it and look up, free QuickBooks Online for students or student files. And the browsing option is often the easiest way to do it. You would think that you can go into the Intuit website here and search in here, but sometimes it's almost like they hide certain things. They're trying to drive you from a marketing standpoint to where they want you to go, which is, of course, the purchase of QuickBooks Online. So they're even kind of hiding QuickBooks Desktop, and unless you want Enterprise, you might not be able to get Desktop, and so on and so forth. And they're basically trying to navigate you here. So it's almost easier to just do a browser search if you're trying to look for the test drive function to practice with, or possibly the student online function to practice with. But as you browse, remember that if you find the .org, the .intuit, QuickBooks.intuit, Intuit's the owner of QuickBooks. So hopefully you're finding a page that is still owned by Intuit. So that's the general idea. So just a quick recap over here.